Hello, welcome to another Jim Cliver show. Today is August 26, 2020. It's Wednesday. It feels just kind of like every other day. Days just blend together these days. And today we may have a special guest joining the show. May have a friend named, I'm not sure how to introduce him, whether it's Dr. Benjamin Glass or Dr. Ben Glass or Ben Glass or Benjamin Glass. It's a friend of mine from Oakland, California. He may be joining on the call. If not, we'll just continue with what we got here, and we'll go with that. So I'll just launch into what I was thinking about, and we'll go from there. If Ben comes on the call and we have something different we want to talk about, we can redirect. But I was on Twitter last night after the Republican National Convention and way past my bedtime, finding myself staying up much later these days during quarantine than with, where am I going to get up and go in the morning? I'm not really going anywhere. So there's a part of me that doesn't feel the drive to get up so early. But I was on Twitter late last night, and there were reports coming out of Kenosha, Wisconsin, that the protests had, not that the protests themselves had turned violent, but that there had been violence showing up at the protests. I think how we use words can really change the impact that we have on others. When we say that the protests turned violent, it says that all of the protests turned. It was all peaceful, and then boom, all of a sudden it switched and the whole thing became violent. I prefer to use something that's like there were protests where there was some violence that occurred, because it shows that it's not the whole thing turning into violence. Anyways, there were videos showing some pretty graphic incidences happening where there were, I believe, 3 people shot, not with rubber bullets, but shot with pistols or guns and real bullets. And somebody, people on Twitter were watching it live because somebody was live streaming what was happening in the protests out there. And I was talking with one guy, and he said, this is starting to look bleak. We're starting to go towards a civil war. And in the way that I heard him say it, it was almost as if it's inevitable that we're going towards a civil race war. And I don't think it is. I don't think it has to be. One thing I really appreciate about Yuval Noah Harari when he talks about the history of humanity, but also the future, is that he talks about things that may happen in directions in which we may go, not certainties about what's going to happen. He talks about the agency that we have as human beings to change the future, to come together and to almost choose the path we want to go down. Yes, many things are outside of our control in terms of what will happen in the world and what happens in our world and our experience. And yet we still have agency. We still can choose many of the things, many of the directions or decisions that we make. Or at least I think so. I hope so. I want to believe that. And so when we look at what's going on in Kenosha, we look at the Black Lives Matter protests. Just a little background. From what I understand, the protests started in Kenosha, Wisconsin, because a black man was shot, I think in front of his family, his kids as well, by a police officer 7 times in the back, and I believe he was unarmed. In the video, it looks like he was going into his car, but still shooting someone 7 times in the back just because they're going into a car is, I would imagine, violates law, if not at least protocol in terms of the police office. But I don't know. But regardless of whether it violates the law or whether it violates protocol, I'm sure it violates the ethics and the morals of many of the people who are watching. And we see this over and over again on Twitter, where a lot of times the video pops up and we see black men being shot by police officers, and not having a weapon, not fighting back, not causing maybe imminent harm or imminent threat to the officer. And it breaks my heart. It breaks my heart to have to see. God, the mother was on TV the other day, and just the tears that she had in her eyes, that her son got shot and nearly killed and maybe paralyzed for the rest of his life. For what? So I think we have a tough situation in this country. I'm not going to sugarcoat it and say that this is going to be an easy way out. We have a lot of anger on both sides. There's a lot of anger from the Black community and from people who relate to the experience of someone being shot and not fighting back or looking as if they're fighting back. And there's, I'm sure, a lot of anger and fear on the community of the police officers who are afraid that maybe this anger will spiral out of control from the protesters and that it'll come and get them. And so there's probably a lot of pain. I imagine if I were a police officer and I shot somebody like that, how much pain I would feel at doing something like that. From the moment, like, I think a lot of times when they do this, they're not realizing what they do. And then afterwards, there's this deep remorse that they're not allowed to express, because if they express it, then they express guilt and then they go to prison for a very long time. And I'm not saying that they shouldn't go to prison. I guess I just think sometimes we assume that they feel nothing about the situation. I imagine many times they feel remorse, they feel deep sadness or frustration with themselves or anger at themselves, or perhaps fear that it's going to escalate out of control, and that now that their lives are deeply in danger. But I also want to step back. And so, I say that police officers are feeling a lot of things, but I think I have a hesitance, I have a tendency to jump in and defend the humanity of the person that appears to be the perpetrator. And I have a friend who said this to me many times. He says, you always jump in and you're always defending the perpetrator. And I don't know why I always do that. I often jump in and immediately defend the perpetrator. And I think it's because so many of us recognize the humanity of the victim, but we don't necessarily recognize the humanity of the perpetrator. Maybe it's me wanting to balance that equation and not, so it's like, it reminds me of doing math homework when I was a kid. I would do math homework in school and then I'd turn it in and then they'd mark me down because I didn't show my work. I said, but I already knew the answer. I know how to get the answer. They said, no, you have to show your work because I need to see what process you took to go from here to here. I was like, it baffled me and frustrated me because I already knew it. Why do I have to sit here and just step by step explain what happened? And I think that similar principle is at play when I jump in and defend the perpetrator before defending the victim, because in my mind, it's clear that the victim is a human being. This person was on the receiving end of a tremendous amount of pain. It's obvious to me that they were receiving a tremendous amount of pain. The family was receiving a tremendous amount of pain, and anger and frustration and confusion and uncertainty. It just, maybe I overlook it, or I just don't say it because it seems clear to me. And it would be like showing my work and saying something that I tacitly know. But I do want to get better at pausing, because I can't imagine what it would be like to think that if I get pulled over, I might get shot for no reason at all, even if I'm complying with everything that I'm doing. I can't imagine how hurtful it must be to think that so many people, especially police officers, authority figures with weapons, are afraid of me without a weapon, that I inspire so much fear in them that they, even with a powerful, deadly weapon, that they may think that they're the underdog, that they're outmatched. I can just only imagine. I guess it's like when I'm walking down the street at night as a man and there's a woman walking in front of me and it's dark and she crosses the street. She looks back kind of like shifty and then she crosses the street. There's a part of me that really hurts. It's like, what, you think I'm going to try to attack you or rape you or rob you or what? Just because I'm a man? Like what? Because do I really look like the type of person that would do that? And so I can only imagine that similar principle at play. Like what? Just because I'm driving a little bit fast, do you think I'm going to attack you? Or because of what I said, you think that all of a sudden I'm going to pull a gun on you and shoot you? I can only imagine what it's like to be the parents of someone like that who has been shot. To have the worst day of your life blasted all over the internet and all over the media, where people around the world now know your son's name, not for the things that he accomplished, but for his shooting death. To be the kid of someone like that. And to know that George Floyd, all of his smiles and all of his joy are not known by the world. He's known for being on the ground crying out to his mother. To be the father of one of these boys and to have to go on TV and talk about why you're calling for nonviolence and to try to do it without getting so filled with rage, but also trying to not cry because you don't want to be known as the guy crying on national television because your whole life you've been taught not to cry. And so you don't want people all around the world to not only remember your son for getting killed, but you for crying and not having the strength, quote unquote, to deal with it. And to think of the other people, the people who are the other black families who are worried that this might happen to their son or their daughter or their mother or their father or their brother or their sister or their neighbor or their best friend or their cousin or their co-worker. Yeah, I want to get better at empathizing and consoling the victim first. The person who defining the victim as the one most of us think is the one on the receiving end of the violence. But I also don't want to forget the quote unquote perpetrator and the feelings of them and the people around them, because I think a lot of their feelings drive the violence, and that violence is a two-way street and doesn't always go between two people. Sometimes it comes from many different sources and gets passed on to others. And so I can't imagine what it would be like to be a police officer who's killed an unarmed black man. The fear of everyone trying to figure out what your name is and trying to come after you and get you, either to throw you in prison or to physically harm you or even maybe your family. I can't imagine what it's like to be a police officer and see so much violence every day. To be the one committing the violence by shooting someone else, or to be shot, or to see your partner get shot, or to see somebody get stabbed, or to have to show up to a house where somebody has committed suicide. I read once talking about what it's like to be a police officer, and in the midst of this article, they said, being a police officer is sometimes showing up to a house where a father just committed suicide by shooting himself in the head, and sitting there and explaining to the 13-year-old boy what happened to his dad as the guy's brains are dripping from the ceiling. And then going home to your family, to your wife and kids, or your husband. And then doing it again the next day, getting up and then seeing a car accident where somebody had their limbs ripped off, or a motorcycle accident where somebody died, or going to a domestic abuse situation where somebody has been beaten and bruised so badly that you can't even recognize them. I'm not justifying what they did. I'm just trying to understand the emotions behind it. But at the same time, a lot of people in the Black community, it really depends on the neighborhood and depends on the lots of factors, but a lot of people in the Black community have seen people get hurt from gun violence or get killed from gun violence. A lot of police officers have too. Some of these police officers are former military, and they've seen a lot of stuff in the military when they're over there. Or maybe they've even seen more as a police officer. Perhaps they've seen more combat in a way, or more violence and more death and destruction as a police officer. And then that makes me think about, somewhat of a tangent, but going off and thinking about what's happening with this pandemic and just how much death and despair that our nurses and our doctors are seeing. That when we get sick, we go to the hospital, but if we're okay, we stay at home. But the nurses and the doctors see the sickest of the sick. They see the COVID-19 patients who can't breathe, who need ventilators, who apparently their skin really puffs up a lot sometimes, or who are having strokes or having horrible things happen to them. And to just be there and witness so many people dying on a daily basis. To be in a job where you signed up because you wanted to save people. And there's very little you can do to save all these people that are dying in front of you because of this mysterious virus that just came into humanity. And not even having the proper protection and being afraid to go back and infect your family, so you're sleeping in the garage because you don't want your kids to get this, because you don't know what it's going to do long term, even if the person doesn't die. But you know how violent this disease can be. And then seeing someone not wear a mask, or someone go out and just kind of flaunt it, and thinking, oh, well, that means tomorrow I'm going to see 10 patients, and the next week I may see 100 patients, and the week after that it may be 1,000 patients. I imagine it's hard to go back into work with hope. I think it's hard for all three of those groups. How do the black families wake up with hope? How do the police officers wake up with hope? How do the nurses and doctors wake up with hope? To be a politician, the fear of knowing that if you say one thing on some small private channel 10, 15, 20 years ago, it's going to come out and ruin your career. And not only ruin your career, but it could ruin the lives of your friends and family, the people you care about the most. Or that you didn't know how to deal with a pandemic. You've never seen something like this before. You tried your best, and you still get blamed for everyone's death, for everyone's loss of job, for everyone's misery, despair. It's your fault. And more than anything, people look at you and they think that you don't care. You just don't care about them. When you haven't slept in months, you've worked 12, 14-hour days, if not more, to try to resolve this crisis, to try your best. And then people still think that you just don't care and that you're just in it for the money, and you're corrupt and you always will be corrupt, and you're just lying about everything and you never tell the truth, and you just don't care about the people. You only care about yourself. Can't imagine. Or when it comes to Black Lives Matter and these police involved shootings of black men, black women as well. And you as a politician wanting to do something and trying to do things. And then people saying that either you're a coward or you're a racist or you're corrupt. And the fear you might carry, thinking that so many of your citizens might be hurting each other. I imagine in a strange way it's probably like being a parent and watching your kids fight and really hurt each other, whether physically or emotionally, and trying to stop it and trying to do your best to intervene, and it doesn't seem to be working, and the kids don't think you're even trying. How does that politician wake up with hope? Hope that people will believe in them and trust that they're trying their best and have faith that it'll work out, that we'll come together as the human beings that we are, and we'll figure it out because we'll work together instead of against each other. Sometimes I don't think that's going to happen. Sometimes I think that we're just going to keep fighting and fighting, and it's going to escalate and get worse. That we're on a slippery slope towards fear, anger, eye for an eye, or worse, retribution. So, but my friend Benjamin has joined, so we're going to transition a little bit. But just to wrap that point up, I want to say that it's hard for almost everyone. In different ways, we're all struggling in different ways. And I just wish that we were better at showing our struggle and seeing the struggle of other people. So at that point, I'm going to bring on my friend with the great camera and the great lighting. Look at that. Looking good, my friend.
Appreciate you, brother. I just, just tapping in with you. Good to see you.
You too. You too.
Mm-hmm.
I just talking with the audience for about 25 minutes about Black Lives Matter, the pandemic. I was taking a little trip through the emotions of different people. So what Black families might be feeling, the ones who were involved, or like directly involved with this, and the ones indirectly involved.
Mm-hmm.
What the police officers might be feeling, what nurses and doctors might be feeling with the pandemic, what politicians might be feeling when they're trying to resolve both of these, and people just don't think that they're trying at all.
It's deep.
So
deep to reflect on all those populations, so many effects, so many different angles to look at the situations that we see ourselves in these days.
Yeah, man.
How are you feeling about, I know you just got done talking about how you're feeling about it, but like, are you spending more time around people that are really processing what they see or what they hear or what they've, directly experienced in the past and maybe are working through? Or how are you on a day-to-day showing up these days in your community? Or who are you seeing like you're seeing me right now?
Yeah, man, it's good to see you. It's been years.
It has.
I am mostly here in the house in Michigan with my parents, and my mom unfortunately has been going through chemo for the last couple months. So I have been on pretty secure lockdown, trying to stay away from people. The occasional conversation at the picnic table out at the park, but nothing really too intimate or too close with other people.
Copy.
And so in my family in general, I would say our emotional strategy throughout the years has been more of don't talk about it, kind of just let it pass, let it simmer. So, I mean, we talk about some things as it relates to politics, but it doesn't go super deep sometimes. It's just there's a lot of stuff happening, man.
That's a fact.
There's a lot happening. So
I like how you put it with emotional strategy, because it really, in the absence of a strategy, fear settles in. Or in the absence of a plan, a strategic plan, I believe fear settles in. And I think that's what's missing right now from a lot of people, that they haven't thought through what is their strategy or ask themselves that question, or spend any time on that.
Yeah, I don't know how much of this has been a intentional strategy or more of just our default, but
True.
I hear you on that. It's just without paying attention to it and being a little more conscious of it, it can really wreak havoc on the heart, but also the body, right?
Yes. It's very important to take deep, deep breaths, almost like a goldfish, where you're like, and expand your rib cage, because it's easy to really contract and drop your chest and round your spine and cut off the blood flow to your vital organs and not breathe, because you're just in such a stressed out state. So even if you feel stressed out, lifting your sternum, taking a huge breath in, smiling, even if the world is collapsing around you and you feel hopeless and you feel upset and angry, and just really like tricking your brain into releasing the positive chemicals that it releases when you activate these muscles, or that you lift your chest and you bring that blood flow into those vital organs. Such a critical piece, like you said. We need to have some strategy, some self strategy to deal with the heartache of seeing our community members lose their houses, lose their lives, and lose their jobs. And I feel it. I'm out in Oakland, California. You feel me? I'm in I'm in the deep East. I walk 2 hours every morning, 5 to 7. I see the people on the streets. I see people praying in the parks. It's the tension is palpable, and I just stay connected to my vision. My vision allows me. So I believe that this is the horizon. Below the horizon, there's a lot of noise, and there's the pain, there's the excitement, there's all the emotions, and then you can rise above the horizon and really tap into less emotion, and be a little bit more just kind of floating through life as a conscious observer. And so my personal strategy is to tap in with the people I know, the people that I'm friends with, my family, and just make sure they're doing okay. Be a shoulder to lean on. Support them any way I can. You know, a lot of my friends lost their jobs, so I'm like, and some of my friends haven't lost their jobs, but they might lose their jobs. So I'm like, hey, let's build, let's work together. You know, learn these skills. I'll put you on. Like, I'm in this mindset that even if we're making less money in the future, we need to learn how to keep more money. Even if I'm not seeing as many people or not collecting as much money, I need to learn how to be more intentional and conscious with how I receive money. And I believe many of us can do a better job at consciously receiving money so that it stays with us. And maybe we use it 6 different ways before we let it go. So that's been where my focus is at, is empowering my friends and the people that I know to develop financial literacy, because things are going to only get more challenging for us financially. And we need to know how to think of the system as our opponent in this chess match, and at least start to see the chess pieces on the board, know how they work, know how to move them, know which moves our opponent's making, know which moves we need to make, and then transcend that and start to see it that we're in partnership with our opponent, you know, and transcend that us versus them feeling. And so that's what I've been really trying to drive home for people with concrete strategies.
I love that, man. Especially that last line of transform the us versus them mentality of like realizing that we are opponents, but not. We're actually on the same team, switching from being more competition based to more cooperation based.
Right. And what does that look like? You start off having to enter into your quote unquote others world. You have to practice empathy and know what they're going through and really feel that with them so that they can see where you're coming from, that you really are not just like coming from this high horse, like, oh, this is what I'm doing, this is what the moves I'm making. It's like, hey, I see that you're going through a lot of stuff right now, and I feel you. And like, it might feel difficult to move forward and think about ways that you can grow and be the creator of your own reality. It might be the easier thing to just be comfortable and kind of be this victim of circumstance. But let me tell you a hard truth. Nobody's coming to save you, brother. Nobody's coming to save you, sister. You're going to have to wake up to the reality that as long as you want to live here, which, you know, I hope that people still do want to live on this planet, even though it's looking crazier by the day, you're going to have to participate in your own unique way, but you're also going to have to learn the letters of the law. You're going to have to learn how the rules have been set up. In some ways, people cliche say the rules have been rigged against us, the system's against us. And that's true, but the system's also there to help us. You know, just because people have generational wealth or are born into money doesn't mean that all of a sudden somebody can't say to themselves, you know, it's my turn. I'm about to create this generational wealth for my family, you know, and there's YouTube University. You know, if there was ever going to be a pattern interrupt with this pandemic that gets us to take a step back and say what's important to us, I encourage everybody to value their own education, their own self-education, their own unlearning from things that are holding them back and learning from things that will propel them forward. I encourage everybody to search for those things and go after them, because that's where I'm at.
I really appreciate that. It says to me, it's like we can choose our destiny. And I was talking about that a little bit before you joined, and how this author, Yuval Noah Harari, when he talks about the future, people say, oh, so this is going to happen. He says, no, it's not inevitable. We can still make choices and choose directions. This is one possible path that it'll go in. There are other possible paths. Which path do you want to go down? And I like what you're saying, because to me, it says the environment has changed. Are you going to adapt or not? if you want to keep going, you got to adapt. And so, like, even me doing a show like this, in my mindset for so long, I said, I don't want to do a show like this because I'm traveling all the time. I'm not going to be able to do a consistent time every day when I'm going across time zones. There's no way. But now I said, I'm sitting at home for months. I don't know when I'm leaving this house for the next 5 months, probably. Let me just do a show every single day at the same time. I can. I got my little studio set up. I can do video a lot better than I could if I'm on the road.
You look clear. You sound clear.
Thank you. Yeah, I bought a little microphone on Facebook Marketplace and moving and shaking, you know?
You're adapting. I feel you.
But it's that idea that you're talking about of adapting. You know, financially, a lot of people haven't had to adapt. I mean, some have had to adapt all the time.
Right.
And others, especially in this pandemic, there are a lot of people who have had like a consistent job through most of their life.
Right.
They would get up and they would go to the office or they go to the workplace, whatever, same time every day for the last 10, 15 years.
Yes.
And now they're not.
Yes.
They may not have the money, or if they do have the money, they're working from home with their kids and family around. It's a whole different experience. And are we going to adapt to it, or are we just going to be frustrated that it's not how it used to be?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I feel you, brother. Yeah. So do we provide strategies? Do we just lend our ear? Because I believe listening is the first medicine, and any pathology is just a path of logic. You know, we need to understand the source of our pains first and foremost. Our society is dealing with a lot of influence from the media, and this, there's there's just a lot of dissonance right now. So the media is developing, there's this new field of study that I've really, I love the name of it. It's called narrative psychology. And I don't know. I just came across a book that was just came out in 2020 called Narrative Psychology. By the way, shout out to the best resource that I know of on the internet right now, Library Genesis, LIBGEN.is. You could go on there and download unlimited books for free, open source. No offense to any of the authors out there whose book is being pirated, but I gotta say it's leveled the playing field in regards to access to knowledge, and I'm just soaking it up. So I found a textbook on narrative psychology, and I gotta say, there is a narrative that is being perpetuated by the media right now that has people seeing themselves as an us versus them, as a them versus us, as a, it's hyping it up. I can't walk down the street without somebody putting a mask over their face. They see me, they go, whew. What kind of solid research do we have that masks are really doing anything but just they're blocking our face? I mean, look, I'm not going to get into this debate right now. I'm just saying, present me with a double-blind, randomized clinical controlled trial study that shows that masks are as effective as our media is saying that they are at blocking the coronavirus, at blocking ourselves from spreading the coronavirus. Just show me. I'm waiting. I'll be waiting here for days. Show me a study, brother.
I'll look to see if I can find one, because I heard that there were a few, but maybe not.
You heard that there were a few, but
I'll do more. I appreciate you pointing that out, because I'll do more research on that.
Please, because I'm a true scientist. I didn't get my doctorate just to listen to what a CNN anchor told me is true. All right, and I definitely am not listening to none of these healthcare experts or infectious disease experts. You got to watch where the money's flowing and know what these people are really trying to support. So I'm not trying to get into no conspiracies. I just say question everything, even me.
But at some point, to have cooperation, don't we have to trust each other?
That's a great point, my brother. Yes, we do. At some point, to have cooperation, we need to trust each other. But before we get to that place, we need to do our own due diligence and study and come to our own truth within ourselves, as opposed to taking someone else's truth and making it our truth without even thinking about it, without putting it through our lens of beliefs and values. we're just going to grab something that's coming at us and say, that's how I believe it is to be true. And
Well,
that's happening, man.
Well, like for me, for example, I don't have a doctorate. I don't have a master's. I have a
It
bachelor
doesn't
degree.
even matter. I just
No, but in terms of understanding scientifically valid statistics and proof and processes and, double blind randomized controls tests or studies or whatever they call them, I kind of know about that stuff, but I don't really know the details on it.
yes.
And so when it comes down to it, I'm going to have to trust people who know that stuff. You know what I mean? Like, I'm going to have to. Do I trust Dr. Anthony Fauci, who has been 30, 40 years at the NIH and whatever, super high up in that, and who has gone through the doctorate, and who seems to be very cautious about recommending studies and making sure that it passes all the gates? Do I trust him to give me the best evidence that we have available? You know what I mean? Like, because I can't do some of that research, or I could, but then I would come up with my own decisions based on my misunderstanding of statistics.
Or based on your belief that he's telling you the truth.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's hard because I can't. There's a lot of things I really need to trust people because I don't know the nuances, and the nuances aren't intuitive. And I'm sure you're familiar with this, with the stuff that you studied. So just background, you studied, was it chiropractic? Chiropractic, is that what it is?
Tick.
Chiropractic, yeah. But also you do massage therapy and a lot with the body, but also the heart. And you could probably explain it better than I could.
I mean, I grew up in the hood. My street knowledge, the information that I gained in graduate school to become a doctor of chiropractic, that was all a formality for me to get licensed and be able to bring myself to this sort of level where I don't need a referral from another healthcare professional. You can walk in off the street and I'm trusted by the powers that be to do something that's going to benefit you and that's safe and effective. But growing up in the inner city part of New York, I was able to gain real world experience, having direct contact with people hustling in poverty, getting no education, going to jail, getting out, dealing with the system. These are my friends. These are the people I talk to still to this day. And my street knowledge or my wisdom comes from observing others, observing myself in situations. But my background, I got my bachelor's in Philly, North Philadelphia, in exercise science. Then I became a massage therapist and was doing personal training with people at the local YMCA. And then I decided to become a chiropractor. And I'm very passionate about that. I believe we need more diversity in that specific healthcare field. But I will say today, my greatest strengths or gifts, I believe, are the wounds that I experienced growing up, having lost my best friend to gun violence, or having my other best friend go to jail, or having one of my closest friends go to jail for 12 years. My one friend that I just mentioned that went to jail, he went to jail after getting beaten up by the cops. When I was in high school, the cops pulled me over and shined the flashlight in my friend's face. Like, who are you? I haven't seen you guys around here. What are y'all doing in this town? So I've been around racism since I was a young kid. And I grew up being the only white boy around a lot of people that were Black or Latin or whatever. And never just never seeing color because of that. In a sense, like, I got to be conscious of it. I got to know the inequalities that exist in our society, the structural way that society was set up to suppress, which, by the way, Mnuchin, I had no idea how much of an asshole he was. I don't know if you know about what he's done over the last 10 years, but Mnuchin, who is, I guess, the treasurer of our government, he had a company that was hired by the government back in 2009, or he was gifted a bank by the government in 2009 because nobody wanted to touch this bank because this bank was responsible for going after people who had foreclosed on their homes or couldn't afford to pay their mortgage. And he basically would grab these properties back from people of color, Black and brown people, And then throughout the 6 years after 2009, that this bank basically transferred all these foreclosed properties into, real estate investors' hands. He only sold 5 of those properties to people of color. And you better believe that the vast majority of those properties were owned by people of color that foreclosed on them. So the point is he took all these properties and took them from black and brown people and put them in the hands of white people. And I'm not here to say that I'm not here to say that I'm running for a politician status or anything, but that is some bullshit, that we our politicians allowed the bank that he was running. I guess it was one of these government sponsored banks to do that. Like, that's structural inequality, or, that's like, that's structural racism in its biggest form. We can get into the cops and all that, but I'm just saying, like, whoo.
It's almost like a reverse Robin Hood, where he took from the poor and gave to the rich.
Facts. He did. And like, whew, and he's still being, being given whatever he's being given. I know he's got a lot of perks from being in the position he's in. Anyway.
Something you said really struck me. You said that my strengths are my wounds.
Yeah.
What a line.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, the bigger the wound, the bigger the gift. The bigger the wound, the bigger the gift. If you want to build resilience, you got to go through some shit. You got to go through the complexity to get to the simplicity. So, yes, my strengths are my wounds, man. I mean, the fact that I grew up went to one of the worst high schools in New York State, with metal detectors and all that shit, and became a doctor. And now I'm able to relate to people that were on that, no high school diploma, dropped out of high school, had kids at 16, got their GED, maybe were in and out of the social system. I can still relate to those people, and I still try to when I see them back when I go back home. But and when I see them every day out here in Oakland, I mean, most of my patients, been in car accidents. They don't got no education. They're from the hood. I can relate to them. They were like, hey, you're the first doctor that ever looked at me, and I could see that you're not even judging me. You're just listening to me, and that goes so far. And I think that that's a skill that you need to really hold as a high value in 2020, right? Because we need people that got something. Like, I'm making money right now. I got my own business. I got my own house. I need to care deeply about these people in these communities, because if I just get rich and forget about my people, then the system just keeps moving forward as is,
To me, it's when you said you went off and got your doctorate, it sounded like to me you went off and got a tool so you could still help the same community you were in. A lot of other people will go off and get the tool and get the money, and then they leave that community. And I'm not going to downplay it. It's hard to straddle two communities like that. It's hard, man. It's tough. Doubt.
But it's natural, because it's like who you are. I think that
but it's two parts of you,
who you are.
Yeah. It's not you. It's difficult in some ways, especially when people try to play the it's us versus them thing, and you feel like you're on the us and the them side, and you're stuck. You're like, I'm on both sides. What are you talking us versus them? Yep. I'm the doctorate, but I'm also from the hood. I'm both. Yep. Whether you want to believe it or not.
Yep. And it all comes down to labels, my brother. If you recognize that our society's set up with labels, and you can differentiate who someone is from what they're being labeled as, if you can differentiate that, they're a human being, they have feelings, they have emotions, they have the ability to open up just like a flower, just like they might have the ability to close down. And so my whole intention when I'm working with people is to take people that are balled up and get them to relax a little bit, And that's the gift that I have. It's one of the biggest gifts that I believe I can give. And it's something that I just get to do that every day as a chiropractor. I'm about to take my chiropractic table, it's over here, about to take it, put it in my car, which, I'm fortunate enough to have a car. That's a blessing in itself. That's a privilege in itself. I'm going to drive down into a lower socioeconomic area and go up into a house with some people that I barely even know and offer my chiropractic services to them. And they're willing to pay for it. The people that are, down the street that are making exorbitant amounts of money, us being in the Bay Area, they're not looking out for me. They're like totally into the rat race of like, and all of a sudden, I tap into some community through my heart. And like, they're like, this today, I'm getting 3 new people that were referred to me by somebody else. And these are all people that I guarantee you are not doing so well. I know where I'm going. I've been there once before. It's just really, you could say it's God's work, it's I'm doing the hard work that nobody else can really do. And I'm hoping my vision is to build a funnel that I can create as many people like myself that come from those affected communities and develop a skill set that they can bring back and help those affected communities with. That's my goal and my vision, and that's my purpose on this planet is to build that funnel. And that's what I'm here trying to share my message with you for is it can't be silent no more, brother. It's not cool to me anymore for me to not kind of just, I've been just listening, I got these big ears. I just been listening. And I don't participate in social media or nothing. But in the last couple of weeks, I just said, hey, it's time, it's time. Let's make it happen. I mean, I do on a daily basis with individuals. But anyway, it's not about me. It's about people that are hurting. That's where we started this conversation.
Hey, man, it's about both.
Yeah.
It's about both. You know what? It inspires me. You saying that you basically, it sounds like to me, you want to give them not only the services, but the tools to do it for themselves. You got these tools and you want to pass on these tools and let them empower themselves to take care of their bodies and their hearts and their minds.
And their finances.
And their amen to that. Amen. I appreciate that. And their finances, right? Because the finances impacts the other 3.
So I'm telling my friends that got, very little income, even people in my healthcare sessions, I'm providing healthcare, but to me, the financial piece is going to give them an ability to take a sigh of relief and breathe. I'm telling everybody, we do not know where things are going, but we know that they're getting worse. They're not getting better. So we need to take all of our bills, our gas, our utilities, our gasoline, if we have a car, our utilities, our insurance, our food, anything that we can put on a credit card. We want to go out and we want to get a 0% introductory rate credit card if we can qualify for it. If we can't, we want to go get, like, if we have really low credit, then we want to just go get a secured card. And we want to just start putting all of our bills onto our credit card and then taking all that money we would have been putting towards our bills and just putting it into a safe place so that we can live off of that money. Because we really don't know, like, if you just keep giving all your money away every month, you're going to end up with no money one month and no income, and you're going to be like, asked out. So I'm just telling people, hey, divert your money into a credit card. I know people say don't get credit card bills, but you want to be able to feed your kids. You want to be able to feed yourself, your family. Save your money. Do not give it to these companies. They're going to be all right. They might come after you, but we need to see like the immediate short term, especially for people that are in the struggle, For people that are a little bit more stable, like lower middle class, and they have decent credit, I tell everybody, go get yourself what's called a personal line of credit, a PLOC. If you don't know what it is, it's basically use it, and then you got to pay interest on it. You don't use it, you're not paying nothing. It's just a safety net. It's just it's something that is there just in case shit hits the fan, And I'm using it currently as my checking account. So if you're established and you've got like little to no debt and you're making a little bit of money, maybe $200 to $500 extra left over at the end of every month, then you want to go and get yourself what's called an infinite banking policy. And that's a legacy fund that you build as a security for the unknown. let's say some of us pass for unexpected reasons. It could be COVID. It could be some Civil War type crazy shit happening. We don't know. So if you have an infinite banking policy in place, that means that you will have secured more money for the next generation. You're building generational wealth, you know, and for those of us that don't come from generational wealth, that's one of the most important buzzwords that you hear all the time. Oh, I didn't come from generational wealth. I'm stuck in the mud. I'm in the mud. I'm stuck in the mud. Yeah, well, you don't need to be making too much money to create a generational legacy fund, you know, and that's through a high cash value life insurance policy.
Generational wealth has to start somewhere.
Facts.
Start with someone.
Facts.
My parents, they grew up in Detroit. They didn't have much money. My dad went through school and got lucky that he got a scholarship to go to General Motors Institute at the time.
Yep.
And so he would study for like 6 months and then work for 6 months and study for 6 months, work for 6 months, you know, until he finished college. And then he got a job as an engineer at GM. And generational wealth started that way. And he didn't inherit much. and it started with him. And he got lucky and he pushed hard. It's a combination of both almost always, right?
Oh,
Trying hard and getting lucky. And yeah, and I appreciate you talking about that. I personally don't know too much about some of those financial details. That's maybe one of the struggles about coming into more wealth is not necessarily understanding how it came about, you know?
Mm-hmm.
But,
well, just know that for every dollar you have in your checking account, 97 cents of it is being taken by the bank, put into an infinite banking policy, and then pulled out and put against their debt. So the goal is to have as little amount of money in your checking account as possible and to use your personal line of credit or your home equity line of credit if you have a house or your business line of credit if you have a business to fund your lifestyle expenses. Anyway, long story short, the infinite banking policy is something that was only created in the 70s. But I'll tell you, generational wealth is a real deal thing. Like the Rockefellers, you know, so free download. You can go learn about it at What Would the Billionaires Do? That's the name of the book. You can download the audio book, What Would Billionaires Do? And that's what they've been doing for decades, for generations, is as soon as someone's born, they open up one of these high cash value life insurance policies, brother. And it's just wild. You can touch it immediately, you know? You don't have to wait till you're 59 and a half. So all of this is about becoming your own bank. It's separating yourself from the system. It's creating a banking system where you deposit all your income into your life insurance infinite banking policy, and then you pull it right back out again, but the money stays in there and earns compound interest. And the money you take out, you just use to fund, you know, pay your bills or do whatever, but you're using your money 3 ways. So what I did is I opened a personal line of credit, right? I funded my life insurance policy, right? So now that money stays in there and earns compound interest. Then I pull the money out of the life insurance. Even though the money's staying there, I'm taking a loan against my life insurance from myself. I take that loan and I pay back the bank that I just borrowed money from to fund the life insurance. You know what I mean? And then I take the money from the personal line of credit, pay off all my credit cards, you know, and now I have a balance and I dump all my income into the personal line of credit. So after a couple of months. So anyway, business credit is something that I never heard of. I've been in business for 8 years. Never heard of business credit. The pandemic hit. It was a pattern interrupt. I started studying this infinite banking, velocity banking, business credit. Business credit is something that means that we all need a business. Jim, if you don't have a business right now, brother, get a business. I don't care how clear you are on the vision for the business. Get a business, start building what's called a business credit profile. If you want more info on that, go to the Wise Guys in Ties on YouTube. I'm actually working with them. Those are my guys. Like they put out an hour-long video every day, just like you're doing right now, brother. It's straight knowledge on how to use the bank's money to fund your own bank with life insurance, then pull the money out of life insurance to fund your own business, and then use the business influx of money to build what's called business credit, which is it's separated from your social security number. It's connected to your EIN number. So if you use it you could do great things. Just saying.
I think what I like about what you're saying, again, I don't know too much of the details because it sounds. I think you made it sound simple, and then you went. And I was like, whoa. So I think there's a learning
That's like
curve.
500 hours
Yeah.
condensed into one.
I think there's a learning curve to whichever system somebody comes up with, but just the concept of trying to change our relationship to money and change our relationship to wealth, and
Right.
that just because we didn't have it before doesn't mean that we can't go out and get it now.
Mm-hmm.
And there are some simple little steps that we can do to build a system that'll work for us to help us in the hard times. Yeah, businesses take lines of credit when they get hit hard so that they can continue to pay payroll. If not, they have to go bankrupt. So there's right, so they can maintain cash flow. So yeah, and so that's what the big businesses do. So small businesses can do it as well. It's just like I said, I'm not too sure about the details, but
Sure. It's just comes back to adaptation.
Yeah. So I'm curious to ask you a question about. So it seems like money can really impact our emotional well-being, but also the body, or the lack of money, or the abundance of money. But I'm curious, from your perspective, how much does the body or our emotional well-being and state impact the money that we're getting, or the money we're spending, or the money
You got to shift your mindset first and foremost. And the mind controls the body just like the body controls the mind. It's a two-way street. I think that with finances, most people live in a scarcity mindset where they budget, they pay their bills, they pay taxes, they pay their basic necessities, and then they have very little to nothing left over. Maybe they even have to use credit cards to fund that lifestyle. So they have to start budgeting and becoming more scarce and like kind of shrinking what they're doing. And I think that contraction shows up in a postural way, in a breathing kind of way, in a sort of brain chemistry kind of way. But I think that once you start to learn or unlearn or have your belief systems challenged and then restructure the way that you think of the world around you, begin to see friends or see people doing things that you never thought was possible. I just think that people need to be around others, and that it'll really benefit their health. And it's one of the most important pieces. Just surround. And so a lot of people that come from communities that they don't have a lot of friends or family or anybody that is a positive influence with finances or with bodily, emotional health, you can go online. That's the beauty of YouTube. That's the beauty of these other channels that have been created to really help people that are looking and seeking help, and provide them with more clarity, provide them with more trust, that more examples of success in these areas of life that you're referencing. So
I love that point about being, nowadays with the internet, we can find almost any type of community we want. And so we can find the ones that will inspire us and will teach us through osmosis in a way.
The fact.
These behaviors. I'm curious as well. You doing a lot of services for people in lower income areas. From myself, I feel guilty sometimes charging people money who don't have a lot of money.
Sure.
Sometimes I can feel very guilty for doing that.
Sure.
Oh, I don't want them to pay. Oh, they need the money. It's okay. I'm fine.
Yep.
What is your relationship or experience to charging people from, especially the ones who don't have that much money?
It's tough. It's tough because, we live in a society where money is the energetic exchange. So even when you begin to feel that way, like, I don't really want to charge these people as much or anything, you turn around and they're wearing some Michael Jordan shoes, or they're pulling up in a nicer car than you got, or things aren't always what they seem with people that appear to have no money. And, I just think that there's just a certain internal struggle that all of us need to get through, that have that weak spot I think it's an observation that, once again, we're not seeing the full truth. We're seeing part of the context, or we're making assumptions, but we're not fully aware of that person's background. And so, yeah, I think if somebody really expresses, hey, I value what you do, I really want to work with you, but I have absolutely no money, I'll say, well, how badly do you really want to work with me? Because what I find is that people need to spend a little bit of money to value something. And if you don't charge them, you're potentially missing out on the impact that you can have, because they're not going to work with you long term, or they may not see your service that you're providing for them as valuable as they could if you had charged them, even if it was a small amount. I mean, better to charge somebody something than nothing, always.
I was thinking about that. It's that sometimes I think people don't want to pay, that it's a loss, that they feel bad every time they pay. But then I reflect on myself, and sometimes I love giving people tips and paying extra money. Sometimes I love just like sending money out. Like, here, take my money. Oh, here, feels good to give you $20. Here you go, take it.
Yeah.
And so it's funny how, and then I reflect, well, maybe other people also feel good. And I've seen this a lot of times. If I offer something for free, people get frustrated and they try to hand me money. And I said, no, it's okay. And then they get even more frustrated and try to hand me money. So they feel worse taking it for free than they do if they give money. Sometimes giving money can give that feeling of I'm helping somebody, or I'm giving back,
Exactly. Yeah. And then it's also an opportunity for them to share with you how much what you did for them helped, and that they appreciate you. I mean, people are giving money to lots of different things these days that don't give them the half of the love that, they get from that direct experience. So
I read this blog post the other day, and it was talking about charging for web services and things that typically a lot of times are offered as free. And the guy basically said, okay, if you're not charging money and your business is stagnant, you're losing money. If your business is growing, you're losing more money. If your business is growing exponentially, you're losing a lot of money. And he says, but if your business is stagnant and you charge money, you make money. If it's growing, you make more money. And if it's growing exponentially, you make a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
And so basically saying, if you want to grow, you need to charge money, because if you don't, then you can't grow.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't charge money for your services, how are you going to bring all these services to the lower income neighborhoods, right? And teach people and train people and help them out and run shows like this, or you need money to get the stuff going and to grow.
Right. And it doesn't always have to be your money. And I think that's one of the biggest things I've learned this year, is that you can use the bank's money, you can use other people's money to live, to grow, so to speak.
Yeah, you can have lines of credit or credit cards, or basic credit in general. You can take credit.
Yep. Definitely recommend lines of credit and 0% interest credit cards over loans or high interest credit cards.
Yeah. Huh. I'd say maybe a few more minutes. Normally it was keep it an hour, but me and Caleb have been doing a lot of different shows. Ben, Caleb, and I all know each other.
Can we grab clips out of this or no?
In theory, yeah. In theory, it'll be up on YouTube. And
okay. I'm just asking, do you have the free version or the premium version of this?
I have the premium version of this.
Nice. So you can make clips. You can cut pieces of this and make them into YouTube videos.
Really?
Yeah.
For StreamYard?
Yep.
Really?
Yep.
Look at you. You investigated the software more than I did.
I read the difference between free and premium. You told me it was better than Zoom. I needed to know what you saw. So.
Well, for me, it's the ability to like put labels on. Like I can show your name on here, or I can switch to overlay. We can switch to like this. We can go
There's a lot of, you could share your screen, maybe your screen, but I'm talking.
Yep, share screen if people are, just for people who might be watching. So I'm going to post these much more live and open. This has kind of been the testing ground. But
Yep.
if people are watching on YouTube or Twitter, they can post comments.
Gotcha.
And then it'll show up on the far right. There's like a comment section. So I could click on it and it would show up underneath, like as a little subtitle in front of us.
Cool.
Like Caleb has question from YouTube.
Yeah, I've seen that. I like that.
So
look, I need to.
You gotta head out, huh? Good.
Yes, but let's do this again. I love you. Appreciate you.
I love you too, Ben.
Rock.
Take care, man. Thanks for joining.
Thank you. Appreciate you, Jim.
All right. Peace. Anyways, y'all, that was a conversation with myself and then with Dr. Benjamin Glass, or Ben Glass. And hope you learned something. I hope you enjoyed it. And look forward to the next one. Talk to you soon.